Captain Veltar pressed his blue-scaled hand against the cold metal wall of his ship's bridge. The trading vessel Harmony's light shook violently as another blast hit their shields. Red warning lights flashed across every surface while alarms screamed in the background. "Shield power at 30%, called out his navigation officer, her voice tight with fear. "We cannot take much more of this." Veltar watched through the main screen as 3 massive Krex warships closed in around them. The enemy vessels looked like giant metal spears covered in weapon ports. Each one was 5 times larger than his peaceful trading ship. Their dark hulls gleamed with fresh battle scars from other raids. "Why are they attacking us?" asked the young communications officer. "We carry only medical supplies and food. Nothing of military value." The captain's throat felt dry. He knew the answer but did not want to say it. The Krex Dominion had been expanding their territory for months. They took what they wanted and enslaved or killed everyone else. The Zelani Republic had always been peaceful. They had no real military to protect their trade routes. Another blast rocked the ship. This time the lights went out for 3 seconds before emergency power kicked in. When they came back on, Veltar saw cracks forming in the bridge's main display screen. "Captain, incoming transmission from the lead Krex vessel," the communications officer said. "Put it through." The screen flickered and showed the face of a Krex war commander. The alien's skin was thick and gray like stone. His eyes were small and black. Sharp teeth filled his mouth when he spoke. "Zelani vessel, you will surrender immediately. Your ship and cargo now belong to the Krex Dominion. Your crew will be taken for processing." Veltar stepped forward. "We are a medical supply ship. We carry medicine for sick children on Zelani Prime. Please, let us pass." The Krex commander laughed. It sounded like grinding metal. "Your medicine will be useful for our troops. Your ship will join our fleet. You and your crew will work in our mines until you die. This is the way of the strong." The transmission ended. Veltar stared at the blank screen for a moment. Around him, his crew of 12 waited for orders. They were all young Zelani who had never seen real combat. Most had joined the merchant fleet to see the galaxy and help their people. None of them deserved this fate. "Sir, what do we do?" asked the navigation officer. Veltar closed his eyes. His people had always believed that reason and kindness could solve any problem. But the Krex did not care about reason. They only understood force, and the Zelani had no force to offer. "Send out a distress call on all frequencies," he said quietly. "Maybe someone will hear us." "Captain, the nearest Zelani patrol ship is 6 hours away. We do not have that long. Then we call to anyone who might listen. Set the message to repeat every 30 seconds. The young communications officer nodded and began working at his station. His hands shook as he typed the message. "What should I say, sir?" Veltar thought for a moment. "Say this. Unknown vessels. This is Captain Veltar of the Zelani Republic, ship Harmony's Light. We are under attack by Krex warships in the Vale Nebula region. Our shields are failing. We carry medical supplies for civilian populations. Any ship that can hear this, please help us. We have women and children aboard. Repeat this message." The message began broadcasting across space in all directions. Veltar knew it was probably useless. The nearest civilized systems were days away. But he had to try something. Another blast hit them. This time the ship's hull made a deep groaning sound. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. "Shield power at 10%, someone called out. Through the screen, Veltar could see the Krex ships moving closer. Their weapon ports glowed with charging energy. Soon they would stop playing and deliver the final blow. Far away, in a region of space so empty that star charts called it the Void, a different kind of ship picked up the distress call. The human dreadnought Iron Wolf drifted silently through the darkness. Its black hull showed no lights except for the small glow of its bridge windows. Admiral Jake Murphy sat in his command chair, staring at the star map in front of him. His face was hard and weathered from years of war. Gray streaks ran through his brown hair. Scars marked his hands and arms from battles he tried not to remember. "Sir, we're picking up a distress call," said Lieutenant Alex Parker from the communications station. "It's coming from the Vale Nebula region." Murphy looked up. "Let me hear it." The Zilani captain's voice filled the bridge. The human crew listened, in silence as the message repeated. When it finished, the bridge stayed quiet for several seconds. "Unknown species," said Commander Lisa Hayes from her tactical station. "Never heard of the Zilani Republic before." "Or the Krex Dominion," added Chief Engineer Ryan Foster. "But if they're attacking a medical supply ship, they sound like the kind of people we know how to deal with." Murphy stood up from his chair. Around him, his crew waited for orders. These were not normal military personnel. They were exiles, rebels and criminals who had nowhere else to go. The Earth Coalition had branded them as war criminals after the Martian Rebellion. They had been wandering the void for months looking for a purpose. "How far to the Veil Nebula?" Murphy asked. 3 hours at maximum jump speed, replied the navigation officer. Murphy walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the empty space ahead. His crew had been called monsters by their own people. They had been cast out for being too violent, too ruthless, too willing to do what others would not. But maybe that was exactly what this situation needed. "Signal the rest of the fleet," he said. "Tell them to prepare for combat jump. We're going to answer that distress call." "Sir," said Commander Hayes, "we don't know anything about these aliens. They could be hostile." Murphy turned to face his crew. For the first time in months, he smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Someone is attacking a medical ship carrying supplies for sick children," he said. "That tells me everything I need to know about who deserves our help and who deserves to die." The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zilani system like ghosts emerging from the void. 5 ships appeared in a perfect formation, their dark hulls almost invisible against the black of space. The Iron Wolf led the group, followed by 2 destroyers, a cruiser, and a support vessel. Admiral Jake Murphy stood on his bridge and stared at the scene before him. Dozens of Zilani ships floated dead in space. Some were completely destroyed, broken into pieces that drifted slowly through the darkness. Others burned with small fires that would continue until their oxygen ran out. The wreckage stretched for thousands of miles in every direction. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Alex Parker from his station. "It's a massacre." 3 large Krex warships moved through the debris field, like hunters looking for wounded prey. Their weapons fired at anything that still showed signs of life. Murphy watched as they destroyed an escape pod that was trying to drift away to safety. The small craft exploded in a brief flash of light. "How many survivors?" Murphy asked. Commander Lisa Hayes worked at her tactical station, scanning the area. "I'm reading life signs from maybe 6 or 7 ships. Most are badly damaged. There's one larger vessel that seems to be intact. It's broadcasting medical signals." "That would be a hospital ship," said Chief Engineer Ryan Foster. "The Krex are hunting down medical personnel." Murphy's jaw tightened. He had seen plenty of war crimes during the Martian Rebellion, but attacking medical ships was something even the worst human commanders avoided. It went against every rule of civilized warfare. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from one of the surviving ships," Alex said. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed the interior of a damaged Zilani vessel. A female Zilani in a white medical uniform looked directly at the camera. Her blue skin was marked with cuts and burns. Behind her, Murphy could see other Zilani treating wounded crew members. "Unknown vessels, this is Medical Officer Scythara of the hospital ship Gentle Healing. Are you here to help us?" Murphy stepped forward. "This is Admiral Jake Murphy of the human fleet. We received your distress call. What is your situation?" Scythara's large eyes widened. "Human? You are from the Deathworld Earth?" "That's right. How many survivors do you have?" The Zilani medic looked frightened but continued speaking. "We have maybe 200 survivors spread across 7 ships. Most are badly wounded. The Krex have been hunting us for 3 hours. They destroyed our defense ships first, then began killing everyone else." Murphy nodded. "We're going to get you out of here. Can your ship still move?" "Some of them. But Admiral Murphy, you must understand. The Krex have 15 warships in this system. Your fleet is much smaller. Perhaps you should call for reinforcements and return later." "There won't be a later," Murphy said quietly. "Alex, try to contact the Krex ships." The communications officer, worked at his station for a moment. "I'm getting a response from their flagship, sir." The screen split to show a massive Krex in battle armor. His gray skin was covered with scars from old fights. Metal implants replaced one of his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was deep and harsh. "I am War Marshal Thekaron of the Krex Dominion. You will identify yourselves and state your business in this system. I am Admiral Murphy of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are attacking civilian medical ships. Stop your assault and withdraw from this system immediately." Thekaron laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. "Earth? The legendary death world? How interesting. But you are far from home, human. This system now belongs to the Krex Dominion. These Zilani are our property. Leave now or share their fate." Murphy's expression did not change. "You have 30 seconds to stop firing and begin withdrawing your forces." "Or what? You have 5 small ships against my 15 warships. Your species may be known for violence, but even Deathworlders can be overwhelmed by superior numbers." 20 seconds. Thekaron leaned forward on his command throne. "You humans are either very brave or very stupid. I will give you one chance to leave. Take your ships and go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. This is Krex space now." 10 seconds. The War Marshal's scarred face twisted into an angry snarl. "You dare to threaten me? I will add your ships to the wreckage field. Your crews will serve in our mines until they die from exhaustion." Murphy looked at his crew. Commander Hayes was ready at her tactical station. Chief Foster had his hands on the engine controls. Lieutenant Parker was monitoring all communications. They had worked together for years. They knew what was coming. "Time's up," Murphy said calmly. The transmission ended. Murphy turned to face his crew. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Outside, the Krex warships were already turning toward the human fleet. "Sir," said Seithara on the open channel to the medical ship, "you cannot fight them all. Please save yourselves. We understand." Murphy looked at the Zilani medic on the screen. She was trying to be brave, but he could see the fear in her eyes. Behind her, wounded Zilani waited for help that might never come. "Medical Officer Seithara," he said. "You asked if we were here to help you. The answer is yes. But I need you to understand something about humans. We don't leave people behind, and we don't show mercy to those who hurt the innocent." He turned to his crew. "All ships, this is Admiral Murphy. The Krex have refused to withdraw. They have chosen to continue their attack on medical personnel and civilian survivors. As of this moment, no mercy protocol is in effect. Repeat, no mercy protocol is in effect." Commander Hayes smiled coldly at her station. "All weapon systems are charged and ready, sir." "Engineering reports all systems at full power," added Chief Foster. "We're ready to show these aliens what a real Deathworld fleet can do." Murphy sat down in his command chair. "Signal the other ships, attack formation Delta, target their flagship first." The Iron Wolf's engines flared to life. Around it, the other human ships moved into position. They accelerated toward the Krex, fleet-like arrows shot from a bow. On the Krex flagship, War Marshal Thekaron watched the human ships approach. 5 ships against 15, he growled to his crew. "This will be over quickly. Prepare all weapons. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Krex Dominion." But as the human fleet closed the distance, something in Thekaron's expression changed. The human ships were moving faster than should be possible. Their formation was perfect, showing a level of coordination that came only from years of combat experience. For the first time in his long military career, War Marshal Thekaron began to wonder if he had made a mistake. The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness of space like a deadly fireworks show. The Krex warships opened fire with massive energy cannons that could punch through the hull of most ships. Bright blue beams of destruction streaked toward the human fleet, but the human ships were no longer where the Krex had aimed. The Iron Wolf twisted through space in a spiral pattern that should have crushed every living thing aboard with gravitational forces. Instead, Admiral Murphy and his crew sat calmly in their chairs as if they were taking a peaceful ride. "Evasive Pattern 7, Murphy ordered. "Hayes, target their lead destroyer with main guns." Commander Lisa Hayes worked at her tactical station with smooth precision. "Target locked. Firing main battery. The Iron Wolf's forward weapons erupted with orange fire. The plasma bolts struck the Krek's destroyer dead center, punching through its armor like it was made of paper. The enemy ship's hull split open, spilling atmosphere and debris into space. Direct hit, Hayes reported. Enemy vessel is breaking, apart. War Marshal Thekron watched from his flagship as one of his destroyers died in seconds. Impossible, he growled. How did they do that much damage so quickly? His tactical officer looked confused. Sir, their weapons appear to be designed for fighting other human ships. The power output is far beyond normal specifications. On the Iron Wolf's bridge, Chief Engineer Ryan Foster pushed buttons and pulled levers that controlled the ship's power systems. Warning lights flashed around him, but he ignored them completely. Engine output at 120%, he called out. Hull stress is in the red zone, but she'll hold together. Keep pushing her, Murphy said. We need every bit of speed we can get. The human fleet moved through the Krek's formation like wolves attacking a herd of cattle. The destroyer Night Hunter, commanded by Captain Dan Wright, dove under a Krek's cruiser and fired its weapons directly into the enemy's engine section. The Krek's ship lost power and began drifting helplessly. Another human ship, the cruiser Steel, Fang performed a maneuver that made the Zelani survivors gasp in amazement. It flipped completely upside down while moving at full speed, fired a full weapon spread, then flipped back and continued on its original course. The Krek's ship it had, targeted, simply exploded. This is impossible, whispered Medical Officer Saithara as she watched from her hospital ship. No living being should be able to survive those kinds of forces. Around her, other Zelani stared at the battle in shock. They had always thought of warfare as something civilized, with rules and limits. But the humans fought like the laws of physics were merely suggestions to be ignored when convenient. The Kreks were learning the same lesson. Their ships were larger and more heavily armed, but they moved like giant, slow targets compared to the human vessels. Every time they tried to get a clear shot, the human ships were somewhere else, firing from unexpected angles. All ships, concentrate. Fire on the human flagship, Thekron ordered. Destroy their command ship and the rest will fall apart. 8 Krek's warships turned their weapons toward the Iron Wolf. Energy beams and missile volleys filled the space around Murphy's ship, but the dreadnought twisted and rolled through the incoming fire like a dancer avoiding raindrops. Hull temperature, rising, reported an engineering officer. We're getting close to the limit. Not yet, Murphy said calmly. Hayes, prepare for boarding action. I want Marines ready to go. In the Iron Wolf's hangar bay, Sergeant Amy Collins checked her weapons, one last time. Around her, 20 human Marines did the same. These were not regular soldiers. They were veterans of the Martian Rebellion, men and women who had fought in the tunnels and corridors of rebel bases. Listen up, Collins told her team. These Kreks like to hurt civilians and medical personnel. That makes them the kind of enemy we know how to handle. No prisoners unless they surrender. No mercy for those who show none to others. Corporal Ben Taylor nodded grimly. Just like the old days, Sarge. Better than the old days, Collins replied. This time we're fighting for people who actually deserve our help. The Iron Wolf suddenly accelerated straight toward the Krek's flagship. The enemy warship was 3 times larger than the human dreadnought, but Murphy aimed his ship directly at its main hangar bay. Sir, we're on a collision course, warned the navigation officer. I know, Murphy said. Hayes, fire the boarding torpedoes the moment we get within range. The Krek's crew on the flagship watched in horror as the human ship charged directly at them. At the last possible second, the Iron Wolf rolled to one side and fired a spread of boarding torpedoes into the Krek's hangar bay. The small craft punched through the hangar doors and delivered their cargo of human Marines directly into the heart of the enemy ship. Sergeant Collins felt the boarding torpedo crash into the Krek's vessel. The impact would have killed most species, but humans were built to survive crashes. She kicked open the torpedo's door and stepped into the enemy hangar bay with her weapon ready. Secure the area, she ordered. Taylor, take your team and head for their bridge. I'll take the rest and disable their weapon systems. The Krek soldiers in the hangar bay had never fought humans before. They expected the boarders to be stunned or injured from the violent entry. Instead, they faced 20 humans who moved and fought like they had been born for war. Collins shot the first Krek soldier she saw, then dove behind a supply crate as return fire filled the air. "Welcome to fighting Deathworlders," she called out to the enemy. "Hope you're ready for a real fight." Back on the Iron Wolf's bridge, Murphy watched as his other ships continued to tear apart the Krek's fleet. The enemy had started with 15 warships. Now only 8 were still fighting, and several of those were badly damaged. "Sir, the hospital ship is requesting permission to begin rescue operations," Lieutenant Parker reported. "Tell them to start recovering survivors from the Kreks. Ships too," Murphy ordered. "Anyone who surrenders gets medical treatment." Sithara's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral Murphy, you want us to treat wounded Krek soldiers after what they did to us?" Murphy looked at the Zilani medical officer on his screen. "Medical Officer Sithara, the difference between us and them is that we don't hurt people who can't fight back. That includes enemy wounded who surrender." The Zilani woman stared at him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I understand. We will prepare to receive casualties from both sides." War Marshal Thekron felt his flagship shake as explosions erupted throughout the ship. The human boarding party was moving through his vessel like a deadly plague, destroying everything in their path. His tactical display showed that most of his fleet was already destroyed or disabled. "How many humans are on my ship?" he demanded. "Sensors show 20 enemy boarders, sir." 20? 20 humans are destroying my flagship? His tactical officer looked terrified. "Sir, perhaps we should consider surrender." Thekron's scarred face twisted with rage. "Never. I am War Marshal of the Krek's Dominion. I do not surrender to anyone, especially not to Deathworld savages." But even as he spoke, more explosions shook his ship. The humans were getting closer to the bridge with every passing minute. War Marshal Thekron stood in the command center of his flagship Death's Edge as another explosion shook the massive vessel. Emergency lights flashed red across the bridge, while alarms screamed warnings about hull breaches and system failures. Through the chaos, he could hear the distant sound of weapon fire getting closer. "Damage report," he growled to his remaining officers. The tactical officer's hand shook as he read from his screen. "Sir, the human boarding party has taken control of decks 7 through 12. They have disabled our main weapons array and are moving toward the bridge. Our casualties are at 70%. Thekron could not believe what he was hearing. 20 human soldiers were destroying his ship from the inside. His crew of 800 Krek's warriors were falling back in panic before a tiny group of Deathworld fighters. "How many humans have we killed?" he demanded. "According to our last report, sir, none." The War Marshal's scarred face twisted with rage. "None? How is that possible? The humans move too fast and fight too well. They use tactics we have never seen before. Our soldiers cannot adapt quickly enough." Outside the flagship, the Space, battle continued to go badly for the Kreks. Captain Dan Wright's destroyer Nighthunter had just finished crippling another enemy cruiser. The Krek ship drifted helplessly as its crew evacuated in escape pods. "This is Nighthunter to all rescue. Vessels," Wright broadcast. "We have more survivors in the water. Repeat, rescue teams are needed for Krek survivors." On the hospital ship Gentle Healing, Medical Officer Sithara coordinated the rescue efforts. Her medical teams were working to save both Zilani and Krek's casualties. She had never seen anything like this before. The humans fought with terrible efficiency, but they also insisted on helping enemy wounded. "Dr. Sithara," called one of her assistants. "We have a problem. Some of the Krek survivors are refusing medical treatment. They say they would rather die than be helped by Zilani." Sithara felt tired. "Keep trying. Admiral Murphy was right. We must be better than those who hurt us." Back on the Death's Edge, Sergeant Amy Collins moved through the corridors with her Marines. They had been fighting for 30 minutes and had not lost a single person. The Krek soldiers were brave, but they had never faced enemies who could fight in zero gravity, breathe poisonous air, and keep going after taking wounds that would kill most species. "Sarge, we're 2 decks from the bridge," reported Corporal Ben Taylor through his radio. "Resistance is getting lighter. I think they're running out of troops." Collins nodded as she checked her weapon. "Good. Remember, if their commander tries to surrender, We accept. But if he keeps fighting, we finish this. The Marine sergeant had fought in dozens of battles during the Martian Rebellion. She had seen the worst that humans could do to each other. But this felt different. For the first time in years, she was fighting for something good instead of just fighting to survive. War Marshal Thekron made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his short life. He activated his ship's internal communication system and spoke to his remaining crew. All Krex personnel fall back to the civilian detention areas. We will use the Zilani prisoners as shields. The humans will not fire on their own allies. In the detention block, 40 Zilani civilians huddled, together in fear. They were traders, teachers, and medical workers who had been captured when their ships were destroyed. Among them were 12 children, all under 10 years old. When the Krex guards pointed weapons at them, the eldest Zilani, a teacher named Korvan, stepped forward. "Please do not involve the children in this. They have done nothing wrong." The Krex guard commander laughed. "Your human friends claim to be civilized. Now we will test that claim." On the Iron Wolf's bridge, Admiral Murphy watched as his fleet finished destroying the last of the Krex warships. Only the flagship remained, and it was badly damaged. But something was wrong. His sensors showed that the human boarding party had stopped advancing. "Collins, report," Murphy called on his radio. Sergeant Collins's voice came back tight with anger. "Sir, the Krex have moved civilian prisoners to the bridge area. They're using them as human shields. We can't advance without risking innocent lives." Murphy's jaw clenched. He had hoped the Krex would surrender when they realized they were beaten. Instead, they had chosen to hide behind civilians. It was the act of cowards, but it put his Marines in an impossible position. "How many prisoners?" he asked. 40 Zilani civilians, sir. 12 of them are children." Murphy closed his eyes for a moment. This was the kind of situation that had no good answers. He could order his Marines to attack anyway, but innocent people would die. He could try to negotiate, but the Krex had shown they could not be trusted. Then, he remembered something. His fleet had more than just Marines and regular weapons. They had specialists who could do things that seemed impossible. "Collins, hold your position," Murphy ordered. "Kate, are you ready?" From her position on the destroyer Night Hunter, sniper specialist Kate Morgan adjusted her rifle's scope. She was floating in zero gravity near her ship's main viewport, her weapon aimed at the Death's Edge's bridge. The distance was over 2 miles, but Kate had made harder shots before. "I have a clear view of their bridge through the main window," she reported. "I can see the War Marshal and his officers. The civilians appear to be 1 level below the bridge." "Can you take out their command staff without hitting the prisoners?" Murphy asked. Kate studied the target through her scope. The Krex bridge was designed with large windows to intimidate enemies. That design flaw was about to cost them everything. "Affirmative, sir. I have clean shots on the War Marshal and his 3 remaining officers. The civilians are not in my line of fire." Murphy nodded. "Do it." Kate Morgan took a deep breath and held it. In the vacuum of space, there was no wind to affect her shot. No gravity to pull her bullets off course. Just pure skill and steady hands. She fired 4 times in rapid succession. The specialized rounds passed through the vacuum of space and struck the bridge window of the Death's Edge. The reinforced glass shattered, and the bridge lost atmosphere in seconds. War Marshal Thekron had just enough time to see the human sniper's muzzle flash before the bullet ended his life. His officers died beside him, their plans for using civilians as shields dying with them. The remaining Krex crew found themselves leaderless and surrounded. Most threw down their weapons and surrendered. A few tried to keep fighting, but Sergeant Collins and her Marines ended that resistance quickly. "Bridge secured," Collins reported. "All civilians are safe. The Krex survivors are asking for medical treatment." Admiral Murphy smiled grimly. "Grant it. And Collins, good work." "Thank you, sir. It feels good to be the heroes for once." Murphy looked at his tactical display. The battle was over. 15 Krex warships had been reduced to wreckage and escape pods. The Zilani survivors were safe, and the civilian prisoners had been freed. But Murphy knew this was just the beginning. Word of this battle would spread. The Krex Dominion would learn that there were humans in this part of the galaxy, and they would want revenge. "Sir," said Lieutenant Parker, "we're receiving a message from the Zilani government. They want to thank us and offer us sanctuary in their territory." Murphy nodded. "Tell them we accept. It's time we found a new home." For the first time in months, the Admiral felt something like hope. His fleet had found a purpose again. They were no longer just exiles wandering the void. They were protectors of the innocent, and that made all the difference. 3 hours after the battle ended, the hospital ship Gentle Healing looked like a busy medical center. Zilani and human doctors worked side by side, treating wounded from both sides of the conflict. Medical officer Sithara moved between the beds, checking on patients and learning things about human biology that amazed her. She stopped beside a bed where Corporal Lisa Brooks, a human medic, was treating a Krex soldier who had lost an arm in the fighting. The enemy warrior was conscious, but refusing to look at his caretakers. "Will he live?" Sithara asked quietly. Brooks nodded as she adjusted the alien's bandages. "He'll be fine. Lost a lot of blood, but Krex are tougher than they look. The prosthetic arm we can make for him will work better than the original." The injured Krex soldier finally spoke, his voice weak but full of anger. "Why do you help me?" "I would have killed you without hesitation." Brooks looked down at him with calm eyes. "Because you're hurt and can't fight anymore. That makes you a patient, not an enemy." Sithara watched this exchange with fascination. The humans had fought with terrible violence just hours before, but now they showed the same care to wounded enemies that they gave to their own people. It was a contradiction that she was still trying to understand. "Corporal Brooks," she said, "may I ask you something personal?" "Sure, Doc. How can your species be so violent in battle but so gentle with the wounded? I've never seen anything like it." Brooks finished bandaging the Krex soldier and moved to the next bed. "It's simple, really. We fight hard against people who hurt, innocents. But once they can't hurt anyone anymore, they're just people who need help." Near the back of the medical bay, Captain Veltar sat in a wheelchair while a human doctor examined his injuries. The Zilani ship captain had been rescued from an escape pod after his trading vessel was destroyed. His blue skin was pale from blood loss, but he was alive. "Captain Veltar," Admiral Murphy said as he approached. "How are you feeling?" The Zilani looked up at the human commander with gratitude in his large eyes. "I am alive because of you and your people, Admiral. We all are. I do not know how to thank you." Murphy sat down in a nearby chair. "You don't need to thank us. We did what anyone should do when they hear a call for help. But you are exiles, are you not? You had no reason to risk your lives for strangers." Murphy was quiet for a moment. "Maybe that's exactly why we had to help. We know what it's like to have nowhere to go and no one to call for aid." Captain Veltar studied the human admiral's weathered face. "The Zilani Republic owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Our government has already sent a message offering you and your people full citizenship and sanctuary in our space." "What does that mean exactly?" "It means you would have a home again. Zilani space spans 40 star systems with dozens of colonies and trading stations. You would be welcome in all of them. Your fleet could serve as our defense force, and your people could settle on any world they choose." Murphy felt something he had not experienced in a long time. Hope for the future. "And in return, you help us protect our people from threats like the Krex Dominion. We are a peaceful species, Admiral. We know how to build ships and develop technology, but we do not know how to fight wars. You do." Across the medical bay, Sergeant Amy Collins was talking with some of the rescued Zilani civilians. The children had been frightened at first by the humans' appearance, but they were quickly warming up to their rescuers. A young Zilani girl named Lynn Ara tugged on Collins' uniform. "Are you really from a death world?" she asked with wide eyes. Collins knelt down to the child's level. "That's what they call Earth, yes? But it's not as scary as it sounds. We have flowers and trees and animals just like other worlds. But you can fight the bad aliens so well. Are all humans warriors?" Collins smiled. "No, little one. Most humans are teachers and doctors and builders just like your people. Some of us learned to fight to protect the others." An older Zelani civilian, the teacher named Corvan, listened to this conversation with interest. Sergeant Collins, if I may ask, why did you choose to become soldiers? Collins looked thoughtful. I didn't start out wanting to be a fighter. I wanted to be a teacher like you. But sometimes the galaxy forces you to make hard choices. Someone has to stand between the innocent and those who would hurt them. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Iron Wolf, Admiral Murphy was meeting with representatives of the Zelani government through long-range communication. The alien officials looked both grateful and nervous as they spoke with the human commander. Admiral Murphy, said High Counselor Gentai, we have reviewed the battle records from today. Your tactical skills are impressive, but we must ask about your rules of engagement. Some of our people are concerned about your reputation for ruthlessness. Murphy nodded. I understand your concerns, Counselor. Yes, we fight without mercy against those who threaten innocent lives. But we also protect the wounded and treat prisoners, according to civilized standards. You can ask your own medical teams about how we handled Krek survivors. We have already done so. Medical Officer Sethara spoke very highly of your people's conduct. Still, we must know, what are your intentions in our space? Simple, Murphy replied. We want a home where we can use our skills to protect people instead of conquering them. Your offer of citizenship is generous, but we need to know that you truly want us here. High Counselor Gentai leaned forward. Admiral, 3 hours ago, the Krek's Dominion was planning to enslave or kill thousands of our people. Now they are fleeing our space in terror, and their survivors are receiving medical treatment. You have shown us what it means to have true protectors. We not only want you here, we need you here. Murphy smiled. Then we accept your offer. 2 days later, the combined human and Zelani fleet arrived at Zelani Prime, the capital world of the Republic. News of the battle had spread throughout the system, and crowds of Zelani gathered at viewing stations to see the human ships. Captain Dan Wright stood on the bridge of his destroyer as they approached the orbital station. Look at that, he said, to his crew. When's the last time anyone was happy to see us arrive? Chief Engineer Ryan Foster laughed. I was starting to think it would never happen. On the Iron Wolf, Admiral Murphy watched as Zelani ships moved to escort his fleet to their new home. For the first time in years, he felt like they were going toward something good, instead of running away from something bad. Lieutenant Alex Parker looked up from his communication station. Sir, we're receiving messages from all over Zelani space. Colony worlds are requesting protection. Trading companies want to hire us as escorts, and the military academy wants to learn our tactics. Murphy nodded. Signal the fleet. Tell them we're home. But even as they celebrated their new beginning, long-range sensors detected ships moving in the dark regions beyond Zelani space. The Krek's Dominion was regrouping, and they would not forget this defeat. Other hostile species were also taking notice of the humans' arrival. Admiral Murphy knew that the real war was just beginning. But for the first time since the Martian Rebellion, he had something worth fighting for. A people who wanted protection instead of conquest, and a cause that made all their sacrifices meaningful. The Void had answered the call for help, and now it had found a purpose among the stars.